That's a good one.
Nice.
The malefactor of our first collapse is at our doorstep. It spoke through our ghosts and offered us salvation if we submitted to it. All was tested with Seraphim, the goddess of trickery. We found an unexpected ally in Callus's daughter, Empress Kyra, and Mithrax, the elixir leader of the House of Light.
Don't die.
What? What the f?
Project MMO has reached Destiny 2. Let's settle one debate. Is Destiny 2 an MMO? Yes. I'm glad we got that sorted. Now let's move forward. The reason Destiny 2 was chosen as part of Project MMO is that I had heard for years, literally years, that their raids had some of the best integrated environment and music that any raiding has ever had in a video game. Plus, of course, I'm curious as to how they mixed the rules of MMOs into an FPS. A lot for me to discover here and a lot to get into. But we've got to get one little thing out of the way because it's going to be a big crux of this video, which discusses day one of being in Destiny 2. This is technically not the first time I've played it. Back in 2022, I had a good promotion from Bungie with their launch of their Witch Queen expansion, and I played it. It was a sponsored deal. I was curious about Destiny 2 as I'm curious about it now. What a win-win situation, a good excuse to dive in. But it was right in the middle of when we were doing some epic MSQ in Final Fantasy XIV, and therefore we decided to play it for the sponsored stream and come back to it. Ta-da! That's where we are today. So I technically played this game before. And that is actually a massive, massive problem. Let's get into it, shall we? So, I decided to make myself a brand new class. I had my character from back when we did the Witch Queen, which was a Warlock, but I wanted to go in fresh, just as we did with Guild Wars 2, just as we do with most games, is let's start from the beginning and we'll work through the game in a manner that allows me to explore. The difference is when I play sponsored deals is often those companies want me to check out their latest and greatest thing. That's what they're promoting. Fair enough. They wanted me to check out the Witch Queen stuff, which means I bypass a lot of parts of the game to get into the content that I'm actually being paid to explore. This time around, though, coming on my own 2 feet, which is, I will also point this out, something we desperately ask companies when they're MMOs especially and they're trying to sponsor us, is let me do my own thing. We have a better stream, people are far more engaged, and we all follow along with the journey. But I understand where the line is drawn. This time I get to explore and do what I wanted to do. So I'm going to make myself a brand new character. We're going to start fresh. Wipe the slate clean. Wrong. The game does not let you do that. Let me explain. So I chose a Titan this time. Big, smashy, crush things. My kind of deal. You guys know the story by now. And off I go. And I replayed the intro, and thankfully it had been so long since I played the Witch Queen that I had kind of forgotten this intro. And once again, I will point out, as I believe I did back then, this intro is fantastic. The way they play with lights and shadows, and they really give a horror vibe to the game. I love this. It's great. It's a shame it's not particularly repeated elsewhere that I have found so far, but it's a really great introduction to the game. What planet are we on? Why have we awoken? I have so many questions. Why are we just, like, chilling? Are we next to a pod or something? System of moons. What the fuck is going on up there? You see all these, like, chemtrails? This is like a conspiracy theorist delight. Look at this place. I think they're putting fluoride in the water. Now, after that, I was dropped onto a planet and the game just told me nothing. And I think, Bungie, if you're watching this, this is where you are definitely going to lose a hell of a lot of returning players. And in fact, new players. Genuinely, this is probably one of the biggest clown shows I think you've done, and it's so easy to fix. It's so easy to fix. What am I talking about? If you, and seemingly through our testing, and we have done testing on this, I've had my team testing this over the weekend, if you have ever played Destiny 2 before, ever, when you log in now, if so you come back, your friends are playing it again, you maybe played 2-3 years ago, whatever it might be, and you come back, the game instantly boosts you to what's called rank 6, Guardian rank 6. And what it's doing, and in theory this is great, is it's skipping all the tutorial parts of the game. It's bypassing them because you have played the game before. Now, our testing indicates that that literally means you've logged into the game at some point. That's the only flag we can see. Now, this might be wrong, but we've done as much testing as we can. We've had players within our team, God bless Lady Bex, who have made brand new accounts on fresh email addresses and bought the game again to go in and test it out. Now, here's the thing. It doesn't tell you it's done this at all. So, for players like me who kind of jumped in at some point, played around with some friends, and then jumped out again until it was time to come back, I simply had no guidance as to what the hell was going on in this game. I had nothing. And what made it really sad is a lot of the seasoned Destiny 2 players who were in the stream and watching along with us were laughing at how bad they called the new player experience. But it's not the new player experience. That's an incorrect way of looking at this. That's not what it is. What it is, in fact, is the returning player experience. And I will say this. It's terrible. It's really, really bad. You don't even get... I mean, literally, if I didn't have Twitch chat spamming me, and I mean spamming me to the point that I definitely noticed something was wrong, I wouldn't have known I had a mount. And getting a mount is a big deal. Getting a mount is an important part of MMOs. It is. It's your movement choice. It's your option. All I found around the map were ones that I could borrow. I could jump into them if they were lying around and go flying around, but I actually had my own, just a key binding away, and had no idea whatsoever. So I was trekking around this map, lost, and I mean legitimately lost. I had no idea what to do. I could find story missions, and which is what I did. I took part in the story missions, but things that it didn't tell me what to do. It didn't tell me exactly why exotics are special. It didn't tell me I had a mount. It didn't tell me how to traverse between planets. It did not tell me how to unlock my subclass. This is really important because I would have just played with 1/3 of my class being available. And it didn't tell me what the hell was going on in the game at all. It told me nothing. And in fact, the game got confused. I went to where the mission was supposed to be, an environment called the Tower, which is essentially the central hub of the game. All the vendors are there, things like that. So it said, you need to go to the Tower. Okay, so I click on the Tower and I go to the Tower and I wander around. I talk to the NPCs and stuff, but I couldn't progress the game in any way. I didn't know why. And it's because I hadn't done a preliminary stop point that you don't have to do. The game doesn't make you do it, which then unlocks the Tower's functionality. So I was wandering around the tower doing stuff, and I'm like, what's going on here? And I had to go back to space and come back again to the same place where all the NPCs acted like, oh, hello, who are you? Welcome, new stranger. I was like, we literally just spoke like 2 seconds ago. And it creates this real stop-start, muddy, immersion-breaking situation. So for plenty of the first few hours of getting into Destiny 2, I was very lost. Story's a big element of my gameplay. You know I love the story, guys. No clue. And what the game did was so strange. As I was doing a couple of the missions which basically just show you a little tour, it played a video which could have been no longer than a minute, which summarized, I think, 7 years of expansions, and it's just a blur of names. It's so ludicrous. It's absolute. The Traveler came, and the Traveler left, and now you're here, and Lightfall, Neptune awaits! I was like, what? What is going on? But here's the strange thing. That must have triggered something on my account. Because the next day, when I logged in, it then played another video. Which was basically the same video, but now stretched to like 7 minutes. Explaining stuff in detail. Why have you got both? That was longer than the story recap you played for me yesterday. That had more detail than the actual in-game story recap you gave me yesterday. That had far more detail in it. What the hell? There's a Mithrax, there's a Sabathon, the eyeballs in space. There are too many of them. What's going on? Carrying on. What?
Vanguard to all units.
Boys, we're out of time.
Osiris.
Don't die.
Alright. Why do you flag my account after watching one video of the summary to play another video of the summary to try? all this stuff was very confusing. And a ton of UI elements. Let's talk about those for a second. The UI elements, I get they're built for console in mind, but god damn it, do you really need to put text boxes over the thing you're trying to show me so I can't read what I'm trying to look at? It was infuriating. I kept having to cancel out of menus to get rid of the text box because you can only do that outside of the menu, to go back into the menu to read what the game was trying to show me. And then the text box would pop back up again with a tooltip helper that's saying, you should read what this is. I'm trying to read what this is. I'm desperately trying, Bungie. I really do. I'm super curious now. I've got my freedom to do whatever I want to do. Now, this is all, these complaints can be summed up because I had logged into the game before, and it's the returning player experience. What I can tell you is we did have Bex make a brand new account. She bought it. She played it over the weekend. Way better experience. And this can all be fixed by asking, would you like to skip forward to Guardian? Have you played the game before? Would you like to skip to rank level 6? Do you know what you're doing? A simple text box that does it. A simple pop-up would fix so many issues with what's going on here. But it continues. So I was in this situation, and I'm kind of looking for what to do. I'm aware there's raids, I'm aware there's strikes, I'm aware there's dungeons, but it made sense, I suppose, because the game just skipped a lot of content, and we will do a separate video on the sunsetting of content, which is a big controversy in Destiny 2, I'm aware of that, and we're kind of... My entire team has been looking at the chronology of how this happened and certainly the buying practices. One of our team, Chris, who's editing this video right now, say hi, Chris. He checked into his BIS list because he's been raiding with us in Destiny 2. And he's taking part, and it's great to play with my team members. And he was like, oh, one of my best weapons comes from a dungeon that released in the Witch Queen. Similar to Guild Wars 2, Destiny 2 operates on a horizontal progression system. You can get items from anywhere, and you have this wonderful system that is like, is this your favorite gun? Cool. You could just keep updating its item level so it's relevant for the rest of the game. You could do that. You can get an exotic, which is their legendary style stuff, the really good weapons. You can get them very early on in the campaign, and you might love that weapon, and it might be great for your character and your class and all the little mods. And I'm now starting to learn about how to min-max in that, but that's going to be in a day 2 type video. And if you love it, you can just upgrade the item level. If you get a crap gun, but it has a higher item level, you can feed it into that gun, and it'll just boost its item level up to that one, so it's relevant for always. This is really cool. This is really fantastic. So Chris looked into the fact that he didn't have the Witch Queen content. Now, it's not a subscription-based game. So he goes to Steam, and he checks, and you can buy the Legacy Pack. And the Legacy Pack includes the Witch Queen, and it includes other stuff from the past that you can buy, and you can play through, and you get the campaigns and stuff. What's not included in there is the dungeons that came with those expansions. Now, what they're trying to do here is they were released later as like a DLC, because that's how they make their money. So they're not included in that Founders Pack. But it doesn't really explicitly point that out. Because Chris could have bought the dungeons separately. Now, thankfully, Chris does want to play through those campaigns. He's a huge Halo fan. So this is right up his street, is to play some Destiny 2. It feels very nasty. I get why it's there. I do. But it feels very bad. It's like, oh, I'm buying the Legacy Pack, which includes the Witch Queen. There's an expectation there, I think, from a new player coming in, which is I am, that would include the Witch Queen, all the Witch Queen content. Just as it would if I was to buy Final Fantasy XIV, if I was to buy the Living Worlds from Guild Wars 2, I would expect, if I buy Heart of Thorns, which I did for Guild Wars 2, I expect the Guild Wars 2 Heart of Thorns raid to be included in that. But it is not in Destiny 2, because they did it on season passes and things like that, so they're retroactively saying this was actually a separate piece. They should probably point that out in the description of selling it for people who are actually after the dungeons, because Chris needed a weapon out of that dungeon, and he bought this thing, and he didn't have that. He has to buy in-game for another £20. And that's something that's like, it feels icky. Even though it makes sense, the way it's marketed and sold feels really icky. Either way, I didn't know what to do with myself. Literally, I was wandering around the tower, and I'm like, okay, I've got all these things I could do. I jumped into a couple of strikes. I thought they were dungeons, which they turned out they weren't. These are like match-made things. And then I saw a dungeon. I was like, okay, that sounds fun. But it's a Lightfall dungeon. Or it's a dungeon that requires a certain item level. So I was like, okay, I'm not going to touch that yet. Let's do the story. The game has caught me up. As I said, it's played these cutscenes and things, these little videos to catch me up. They really want me to do the Lightfall campaign. Now, I'm not going to lie. When Destiny 2 Lightfall launched, I am fully aware of the backlash from the community as to how bad this story was. generally speaking, when that happens, I'm still going to have fun with it because I'm a streamer, right? It's a privilege I do have, which means that even if the story is atrocious, we're probably going to have a giggle at how bad it is, and we're going to have a good time. I played through the first couple of missions. I'm doing it on Legendary because it boosts your item level up so you can essentially do the latest raid, which is our overall goal of Project MMO. And I made it 2 missions before. Honestly, and this is rare this happens to me. It's pretty rare. It was just too boring. It wasn't funny bad. It was just really dull. And I was really bored. And there's just so many games and so many experiences to be had in the gaming world that I just couldn't justify spending my time and potentially another 10 hours of this campaign being bored on stream, especially when I'm just not enjoying myself. I'm not going to do that. So I had to bow out. I'm sorry, Bungie. I don't know what happened there, but essentially it's like 20 minutes of horde mode stuff, then a cutscene, 20 minutes of horde mode, then a cutscene. The characters aren't likable. They're constantly mentioning weird, edgy things like the Veil. I don't even know what it is. You know, things like we must protect the Veil. I'm like, okay, well, what the hell is the Veil? The Veil has been taken. Good? Bad? I don't know. I have no idea. Apparently, it's very important. And these Silver Surfer type characters that are like based on gods, I guess, like Viking and Greek gods, but they're not funny. And they were just kind of like, ugh. It was tedious. It was very tedious and. I think we just found the Warriors of Darkness.
The Veil is before us. It's still outside your grasp.
But what is the Veil?
My forces are locating as we speak.
So, you're the
Jesus, are you
Lightbearer.
wearing a... What is that belt?
Look, I'm not going to claim my mind's eye is anything special. But you hear Earth's immortal warlords growing up and you think like round shields and bushy eyebrows. Here you come, stepping around, smacking bad guys with green, stringy stuff. I've never seen anything like it.
It felt very edgy and very, very pre-teeny. It felt like a bit of a Twilight book that was going on. And then the Silver Surfer came down, and this guy's so fucking cool and all that. It's like, this guy's not cool. This guy sucks. This guy really sucks, and he seems to have an erection for some reason. Hard pass. So I bowed out of the story after a couple of campaigns. Now, after a couple of the missions. I will finish them, but I'm doing it bite-sized off-stream. I'm not going to be bored on stream. That's not going to happen. But I do want... apparently, I do need to finish some of this campaign. It's mandatory, essentially, in order to access certain parts of the game that are coming with Lightfall. So I will finish the campaign. I'm doing it piecemeal. I'm like on mission 4 or 5 at the moment of, I don't know, 10 or something. So I will do that off stream, and I'll give you a full report of what I think when I've actually completed it. I am watching all the cutscenes and taking it all in, just not on stream where I'm going to be bored, and, you know, we're trying to entertain people in some way. So then I was like, well, what should I do now? And I literally was like cross-armed. I was, I don't know. This is a weird feeling. And when I did the fresh start of Guild Wars 2, it's like I finished every single day with like, that's my objective for tomorrow. That's what I want to get done. This is where I'm going to go. And it was a very clear path of my choosing, which was great. Same with World of Warcraft. I know what I'm doing the next day when I log in. And the same with Final Fantasy XIV. I have an objective when I log in. And certainly with a fresh game, I was at a loss. So I was just kind of browsing the menu for things to do. Like, I kind of want to update my gear. I want to check out these new experiences. So, the dungeon. I'd seen the dungeon before. I'm going to go into the dungeon. And again, a tooltip error. I will say, some people will disagree with this, but I think this is a fair shout, and a lot of the seasoned Destiny 2 players fully agreed with me here. The dungeon is listed as 1 to 3 players. Every piece of content that I had done up until that point was scaled. Which means the open world is scaled. I still have not felt, as my gear upgraded, that the world is any easier or anything like that, because the world just scales around you. Okay. The strikes, which are 3-player missions, so they're instance 3-player missions, like, you can essentially call them dungeons for the sake of people who haven't played Destiny 2. They scale. So it tries to matchmake you with other players, And if it can only find you the only person who wants to do it, then it scales it to a one-person environment. If you find 2, it scales it to 2 and 3 and so on. And very similar to a lot of MMOs, it just scales the content so you can go and enjoy it. And the dungeon says it's 1 to 3 players. So the assumption is there, based on literally everything I've played up until this point, that this is a scaled piece of content. And in I went. And obviously by the tone I'm giving you right now, it is not scaled at all. It is designed for 3 players. It requires 3 players worth of damage. Now you can solo it if you are like Giga geared and bist to the teeth, but there's no warning at all. And it suggests 1 to 3 players. You can go into it and it says to you, you can do this as a 1 player. It has no warning. It has no tooltip. It does not say this content is not scaled. It doesn't say anything like that. It's listed very, very similarly to the strikes, which are scaled. Done it the exact same way, and we double checked this afterwards when people were like, I'm pretty sure it tells you that this is like a 3-player piece of content. No, it says this is 1 to 3 players. And in I go. And I'm really stubborn. If you've never watched me live, you won't know how stubborn I am, and I'm working on it. It's an internal thing. But I would absolutely, if you're watching Bungie, I would absolutely put a thing on there. If you're gonna label it as 1 to 3 with a recommended power level of 1600. And give it as the daily dungeon within an hour of installing the game. You know? Little ipso facto. I'll take some of the blame. My stubbornness is absolutely there. Most players would have dipped out very, very quickly. But still, a little heads up is nice. I spent the next couple of hours in that dungeon figuring out the mechanics and trying to overcome the obstacles that were placed in front of me. And I got very, very far. Don't get me wrong. And until the point that I actually had to give up, because it dawned on me very heavily, is that I simply could not do enough damage to defeat this boss. Although I figured it out mechanically. And it was really interesting. And that's the sad thing, is the dungeon itself was very, very interesting and super fun and engaging. It was called Duality, where there was a lot of jumping puzzles. There was a lot of messing around with teleporters and positions you were in and world flipping and a dark side and a light side, Duality. All that kind of stuff was really cool. But it became very apparent as I simply could just not do enough damage, which was very frustrating to me. It was like, oh, I figured this out mechanically. I've solved the puzzle, but I can't finish it. And coming out, it's like, yeah, that's when I check the chat, because I do all this content blind, so I can not be guided or people telling me what to do. You should get this weapon, you should get the setup, things like that. And ended up in a situation where I was like, I just can't win. There's no way I can provide enough damage here to defeat this boss. I come out, it's like, yeah, you need 3 people for this. This is a 3-person piece of content. That's what it's designed for. If you were Giga geared to the teeth, yeah, maybe you can solo it. People have done it on YouTube. But it is not designed for a player who's 1620 item level of 1800 going in and soloing it. And I was like, well, that's really weird. And then we checked it. It's like it's 1 to 3 players. So that kind of rounded out my day 1. Now, I'm going to say, not a great experience. I think that's come through here. Not a great experience. And so much of it can be solved with just some simple tooltip updates. And that's what's frustrating about it. Bex has played through the campaign on a brand new account, and she had a way better experience. Way better experience. She had a great time doing that. But she ran into the same situation as me, because she had an account as well from a long time ago, like when the game launched, that flagged her as being a level 6, which casts you as a veteran. I have no idea what to do. The memory just doesn't last that long with the minutiae of video game, especially with ones as complex as MMOs. I just couldn't find where to go, the same as me. I found content basically just through clicking through menus and finding things, locating stuff. But I needed chat help to know I had a mount or how to find the raids. But what I did find out, and to end on a great note, is that, again, lots of people have come on this journey with me. They've got their Destiny 2 accounts up and running. And it turns out that only the latest Lightfall raid is actually scaled for the endgame gear. They do scale you, again, coming back to this weird scale it sometimes, scale it don't issue, they do scale you in the old raids. Which means I've decided I'm going to go straight into the raid with these people. We're going to go do the Vault of Glass. And that will be our next Destiny 2 video. And I know this is the original raid they made. I believe it's a remake of a raid from a Destiny 1. Which means we can go on the same journey again as we did with Guild Wars and everything else, is see where this takes us. So thank you so much for listening. And Bungie, if you're watching, just some tooltip updates. You know what, text box? You've played this game before. Would you like to skip to rank 6? Sure. Or maybe not. And that would solve so many issues. Thank you, guys. I'll see you again. Bye-bye.